It's time to return the Spyro Reignited trilogy. This is a direct continuation of a challenge I dished out using the Character Swapper mod for PC. Can you beat Spyro the Dragon with Sheila, Sergeant Byrd, Agent 9, and Bentley? If you want to see how that turned out, feel free to check out the video highlighted here. Without giving away too much, taking all these characters throughout Spyro 1 was an interesting experience and a fun time overall, and my curiosity since then skyrocketed, seeing how far I can go with these guys across the whole trilogy. Today's video will be doing just that, as we take these characters through Spyro 2, Ripto's Rage. Let's dive into Avalar and see just how much can be done. Can you beat Spyro 2 with other characters? The overall structure is going to be the same as the last game. Under almost no circumstances should I ever switch to Spyro unless the game forces me to. In the case of the first game, we only ever needed Spyro to get through portals to prevent soft locking. This time I will allow speedways, as the goal is to now fully complete the levels as much as possible, if not 100% them entirely. They must be able to meet the game's criteria of 14 talismans and 40 orbs at most, and lastly, defeat Ripto to beat the game. Now that the objectives set in place, let's get started. Like the last game, I took out each character one at a time to test out what they're capable of and took notes of what limitations they have. We begin in Glimmer, where right off the bat, all these characters can break all the gem boxes with no restraints. Obviously, these gem boxes would apply to both Spyro 2 and 3, so this really comes as no surprise. Regardless, it's relieving to see we can collect all the gems here, no holds barred. For the most part anyway. Anyway, everyone is capable of taking down the lizards in this level, though the bigger guys are going to be a struggle for most of these characters. Unless you're Agent 9, in which case you can shoot down almost anything that comes your way. Things start to divide once we come across money bags. You gotta pay 100 gems to cross the bridge, unless you have enough vertical height to bypass this toll completely. Sergeant Byrd and Sheila meet this criteria, while Bentley and Agent 9 are gonna have to take the standard route over the bridge. And with that, we get our first talisman. This is where I want to mention something that's gonna make this game differ from how I handled Spyro 1. Unlike the last game, you have to get to the end of the stage in order to move on from one hub to the next. So if there's an obstacle one character can't get over, I'll have to bring in another to get past whatever is stopping the former in their tracks. And I don't really feel like relying on the plane this time around, and based on the comments I got from the last challenge, it's probably for the best that I do without it. I only ever relied on it out of sheer curiosity, so this time we're not gonna depend on the Omniswapper whatsoever. Another thing worth noting is that power-ups in this game are essentially useless. None of these characters react to the power-up gates at all, so we're going to have to do our best working our way around this. Unfortunately, that's not the case with Glimmer, as you can't really light the gem lamps scattered in the caves and outside by the exit portal. Nor can you do anything with the red lizards here, so that's 3 orbs everyone's going to have to skip out on. With our first talisman in hand, it's off to Summer Forest. Fortunately, you don't have to worry about running into soft locks, as this game, as well as Spyro 3's portals, function differently than those from Spyro 1. From here, it was the standard fare of gathering as much gems as I can carry per character. From here, there are vases that Sergeant Byrd and Agent 9 can't open up, but Sheila and Bentley are enough to get the job done. Next, there's Hunter's jumping tutorial. Bentley's gonna be struggling here big time, while Agent 9 can't even make it past this first platform. Sheila will get even further before the gliding section, which leaves Sergeant Byrd capable of clearing the tutorial and collecting the orb. He's also able to fly over to this next orb without having to swim over to it, which brings me to another thing. None of these characters are capable of swimming since they weren't developed with this mechanic in mind. While Sheila can paddle above the water, everyone else displays this weird behavior by just touching the water. It gets even stranger from here, but I'll touch upon this in a little while. Let's check out the first 2 levels outside the castle walls. First stop is Colossus. It's here that Sheila, Bentley, and Sergeant Byrd are going to have to avoid enemy contact at all costs, as from Glimmer onward, you can't attack any enemies at this rate. Not that I'm really missing anything either way, since enemies in Spyro 2 only leave spirit particles, which already means nothing to me if I can't even properly use them. Everything is straightforward until you come across this monk levitating the platform. Agent 9 and Bentley will be needing a helping hand, while Sheila and Sergeant Byrd can reach the other side without even needing to talk to the guy. Make your way to the Yeti, collect your talisman, and now to check for orbs. Another fun note to add, while these characters display an odd behavior touching the water, with ice it's the exact opposite. They just walk over the floor like the ice is not even there. Anyway, we can't really do anything regarding hockey since the way the puck works is for Spyro to spit it at the goal. With these characters built around different mechanics, that automatically means this minigame is nothing but dead air. Well, next door, if you want to torch the statues, I'm sorry to say not even Agent 9's blasters are effective on this. So that's another 3 orbs these characters won't be gathering. Next is Idle Springs, where most of these guys can't even get started as there's an idol blocking their path. The idea is to take him out so the workers can help you get to the end of the level, but Sheila, Bentley, and Sergeant Byrd can't do anything against enemies, meaning they'll be needing another way to get past them. This is where we reflect on Sergeant Byrd's unlimited flying capabilities and continue to put that to good use going into this stage. Agent 9 will be playing the level regularly, shooting at everything he sees. Navigate your way through this level and obtain the next talisman. As far as orbs go, you're just as out of luck here, both on the statues dependent on supercharging and the set of challenges Foreman Bud here gives you. You can clear the first one no problem, but that's as far as you're ever getting. Nothing these guys can do will get a reaction out of the fish, so that's 2 more orbs we're effectively skipping. Now to pick up where we left off on Summer Forest, making our way inside the castle. It's gonna require some work, but Sheila can still clip through to the other side with a well-timed jump, and Sergeant Byrd can just fly over it like it's nothing. It's when you reach this button when we run into a snag. None of these characters can push this exact button, even though, by all accounts, I can confirm that this doesn't happen anywhere else in the game. And I really need to get to the other side, so there's no way around it. I said before I shouldn't rely on Spyro unless the game forces me to, and while with the first game it's only with portals, for this game it's this one damn button. Luckily, this is the only single time in the game I'll ever run into a situation like this, so just do what you must and continue your way inside. One good thing about these characters is that they can easily bypass roadblocks where the game expects you to backtrack much later for that one little thing that's just out of reach. This big ladder, for example. Why wait for the ability to climb when you can just high jump or fly your way up there? If you're a Sergeant Byrd, you can easily obtain all the orbs in this homeworld. Sheila will be missing out on Hunter's Challenge, with everyone else dragging behind for one reason or another. I should stress that I'm only referring to instances where you would need to come back for climbing. We really can't do anything to get past head bash related scenarios. I firmly apologize. On the Hurricos, unless you lack the vertical height, you don't have to worry about this first diode at the start of the level. Everything else from here should be business as usual. Just be mindful of the enemies and especially the weird behavior of the robots. Sometimes they'll act like you aren't there depending on the character. After your next talisman, I'm happy to report that Sheila and Sergeant Byrd can collect some orbs in this level. Haven't seen these in a while. Just skip all the way to Spike over here and push the button inside. Again, every other switch in this game but the one in Summer Forest is fully accessible to all these characters. I have no idea why, but moving on. You can also collect the orb from Watt over here and walk away from this with 2 extra orbs for the penguin and kangaroo. We can completely disregard this waste of a minigame since you can't interact with the lightning stones. You can bring in Agent 9 to shoot these 3 gear grinder thieves, but that's about all the mileage you're getting out of this. Sunny Beach and Aquaria Towers is where things start to get interesting. At the start, you can ignore this turtle at the start if you're Sheila or Sergeant Byrd. Have Agent 9 blast him if you want to keep things going. Then comes the issue of making your way outside from here. Sergeant Byrd can fly out of this room if you position him just right, but if you're clever with the water physics, you can pull up something incredibly bizarre. If you provide enough force going underwater, they'll actually dive inside, but because they're not programmed for swimming, they'll be in this state where you'll either float back up to the surface or only resort to jumping in place if you press the jump button. Realizing this, I could use this to my advantage making my way through the water sections in this level and the next. And yes, you can use this to get that lone orb in Summer Forest if you want. In any case, Sunny Beach should see you with the next talisman in hand, and as far as orbs go, you're gonna walk away empty-handed once again. Weird how you can't do anything about the turtles you have to climb up here for, but the big guy over here is free game. Meanwhile, Aquaria Towers can go a number of ways. Since there's not much progress Sheila and Bentley can make, you can just bring them up to the end to grab the talisman as soon as the level begins. Agent 9 can hit the switches and continue to make progress through the level as normal, keeping the weird underwater behavior in mind. Sergeant Byrd can just ignore the switches and fly around the level as he wishes. At the moment, it seems the only orb you can get here is rescuing the seahorses in the numbered towers. If you're Sergeant Byrd or Agent 9, you can clear this objective and add an additional orb to your collection. Actually, it's when I took these characters through these levels as well as field testing Spyro 3 where I realized the water physics were going to cause problems making progress in levels like this. So I sought outside help to see if there was anything I can do to remove this or disable the water physics entirely. Thankfully, 2 of the modders I asked informed me that removing this mechanic was easy stuff. So big thanks to Zethical and Infinite X-Streamer for helping me out. I'll be sure to link their profiles down below. Anyway, Ocean Speedway. Depending on who you're playing and how many orbs you have, unlocking this level should be no issue. I took Sergeant Byrd in to see what I can do, and much like Spyro 1, I'm working with a time limit and can only do so much aside from flying through rings and arches. Having all 6 talismans in Summer Forest, it's time to take on Crush. If I was concerned about anything going into Spyro 2, it was definitely the bosses. If Spyro 1 taught me anything, there are some enemies you can interact with and others you can't. As far as the bosses were concerned, I can either ignore them with any other character unless I'm Agent 9, and that seems to be the case here. Sheila, Bentley, and Sergeant Byrd can't do anything against Crush, but this is where Agent 9 comes in to keep the pace going. Once you shoot him down, it's time for the biggest homeworld in the entire Spyro trilogy, Autumn Plains. If you're Sergeant Byrd going into this hub, then the far-off orb in the distance should be no problem for you. Good luck breaking down this wall for the other. None of these characters can do anything to get past this. You can completely ignore paying for climbing and high jump your way to this first set of ladders. The second step is going to require Sergeant Byrd's flying to get up to Scorch. Assuming your orb count is high enough, you can get past this door asking for 8 orbs, or just fly over there if you want to keep going in the castle. You will have to pay up for Zephyr and Shady Oasis, as it's the only way you'll be able to access them, as well as Icy Speedway, where Sergeant Byrd can fly through some more arches for additional gems. The same is true for Metro Speedway all the same, some more arches to add to our gem count. Having gathered everything we can in Autumn Plains, it's time for the 8 levels residing in this homeworld. First is Skilo's Badlands. Just carefully making your way to the end of the level itself is standard stuff. Seek any additional help if certain platforms are too spread out, and from there you should have the talisman. It's also here where we're introduced to those annoying mystery jars. You're supposed to chase these things back to the start of the level for the gems inside, but here these characters can't even do anything to get them started, so we'll have to ignore these vases going forward. And I have to ask, why is it that Sergeant Byrd can deal with the lava toads in Enchanted Towers, but can't even do the same thing in this game? I'm sorry, am I missing something? Just bring in Agent 9 as a substitute for the time being. You won't be able to get all of them doing this, as there's a toad hiding behind this gate. You can't spit rocks at him using any of these characters, so that's another orb we're gonna have to give a pass. As well as these lizards trying to eat up the cavemen. Not even Agent 9's lasers can do anything against them, so no orbs can be attained here. Crystal Glacier starts to get better for these characters. Right off the bat, it looks like you can't do anything about the ice to free these ice builders. You can either fly over the distance with Sergeant Byrd or bring in Agent 9 to break the ice. These green vases, for the record, function the same way the firework boxes do in Spyro 1. You can break these with Bentley and Sheila, but you will take damage upon doing so if you want these gems, go about them carefully and stock up on fodder if you're low on health. Much like Glimmer, you can either pay up to make it past this bridge or bypass this system depending on what character you're playing. I should quickly mention that if you want to go for the Draclets, Agent 9 can definitely do so. It'll take some work, but I guarantee it's possible if you bring in help to get them over these far off platforms. As far as George the Snow Leopard goes, you can't interact with the fish to feed him, so that's a hard pass already. Make your way to the end, collect your talisman, and it's on the Breeze Harbor. Already this level is among my favorites, but bringing these characters in for the challenge was a major highlight. First of all, I was concerned for how they're gonna handle mechanics such as the cannons and the trolley. I thought to myself there was no way they could interact with them, but to my surprise, they can actually use them. Meaning if you want to get all the orbs here, you can definitely go for it. This goes double for the trolley now that we're here. The fact that I can actually do this with these characters is outright amazing. One of my favorite side quests in Spyro 2 just got all the better. I love this already. If you want to reach the end, just leave Sergeant Byrd to fly all the way to the ship, and Sheila's high jump will see you reaching a talisman if you're stuck with a character that can't get any further. Best part is that if you're Sheila going into this level, you can 100% this stage, adding another additional plus in the notebook. And then there's Zephyr, the complete 180 from the last level. The enemies here are going to give you a run for your money, whether they're shooting missiles at you, smacking you around, or chucking barrels at you. If you can endure this, be sure to have the right character on standby. You can use the cannon here, which is always nice, so obtaining the talisman should be basic and straightforward. If you want to get the orbs here, this is where every character's run is divided. Sheila and Sergeant Byrd have the vertical height required to obtain the orbs rescuing Juliet, though we can't do anything about the cowlick, so we'll just take our 2 orbs and Agent 9 is gonna have to herd them in. His lasers can interact with them, meaning you'll have to return them all the way to Little Bo Peep, which is just as tedious as it is playing normally. If you want the second orb from doing this though, just forget it. You can't send them high enough to get past this point if I tried. Scorch should be no different from a standard playthrough. The switches here are fully accessible, meaning you can make full progress with no major roadblocks slowing you down. So if you want to shortcut your way to the finish, you can gladly do so if you're high jumping or flying over there. Be mindful of the enemies unless you're Agent 9. Obtain your talisman and check out what orbs there is to cover. The monkey side quest is just unplayable. You can't hit the trees, so that's another orb to skip on. If you're Agent 9, you can stop by Handle for this Flag Keeper side quest. Surprisingly, Agent 9 can shoot down the big guy in question, so just hit after Bob here and try not to get hit. Going into Fracture Hills, it seems like we're stuck as soon as the level begins. Sheila's kicks, Sergeant Byrd's rockets, and Bentley's club aren't enough to free the satyrs, but Agent 9's blaster is always our saving grace. Bonus points is that using Agent 9 here will identify what trees and bushes are enemies. We can't do anything against the Earth Shapers, so we can gladly skip this Alchemist Escort because the less said about this minigame, the better. There's no way you can break this door down, so that's another set of orbs we won't be gathering. So just grab your talisman from Sheila over here and head on out. On to Magma Cone. We're keeping in mind that the Earth Shapers here are strongly ineffective, so the main objective here is figuring out how to get to the volcano. Before we even do that, there's Hunter's Crystal Popcorn minigame. Just be quick on the draw and you should be able to walk out of here with 2 extra orbs if you're Sergeant Byrd or Sheila. Now here you can either pay this money-grubbing so-and-so to use the elevator or have Sergeant Byrd go out of bounds and cheese your way out of this. He's also your ticket to going up this volcano, since climbing up there doesn't really matter so much as you just touching the trigger to activate this cinematic. Oh, my mistake, just fly over the Bippo over here and forget the volcano entirely. Yes, you can actually do that. And since we can't deal enemy damage here, we're gonna have to skip going for this side quest altogether. And Shady Oasis is gonna see us relying on Agent 9 to hit the berry trees if we want to keep Shorty moving. You do this enough times until you reach the end and obtain your talisman. While Agent 9 is still here, he can also take down the lamp thieves and obtain one last orb in his collection. And knowing every character can't use power-ups whatsoever, that means we can skip this head bash mission and make our way to Gulp, having all 14 talismans in hand. Right off the bat, already I was concerned going into this, as the fight begins with having to knock down these barrels towards Gulp. None of these characters are capable of pulling that off, so I thought for sure this is where I'd cut my losses and just end the run here. That was until I brought up Sergeant Byrd. At first, it looks like I'm just wasting my rockets, but for some odd reason, this counts towards defeating Gulp. I don't know how I'm doing this, I don't know why I should be doing this, but I'm just counting my blessings that this is effective to begin with. I can assure you with a huge sigh of relief that it's indeed possible to get past Gulp. Once you come across this miraculous breakthrough, it's on the Winter Tundra. Sheila immediately has full access to the head bash chests, as well as these boulders asking you to do so. You can also gain 1 free orb in the process, so that's a plus. The rest of the orbs are smooth sailing once you know how to get around them. And speaking of orbs, that brings me to my biggest concern going into this homeworld. We're gonna need a lot of them if we want to get to Ripto, and there's even 2 levels that ask you to have enough orbs to activate them. Cloud Temples requiring 15 orbs and Metropolis needing 25. And the way these characters have been going, I've been having strong doubts they'll ever meet the criteria this game demands. But we're going to see just how far we can take them. Starting with Mystic Marsh. Sergeant Byrd can easily fly to the end of the stage if he wanted to, and Sheila's high jumps is always a saving grace. Bentley and Agent 9 are gonna require some extra help if they want to get to the top though. Since Winter Tundra throws more orbs at you, getting to the end is a definite no-brainer. Agent 9 can take on the Sparkplug Thieves if he wants for an extra orb, and we can skip the Professor's Pencil since none of these characters can get started after grabbing the egg. Since it's programmed so you have to spit, that's immediately out of the question. By this point, if you're Sergeant Byrd or Sheila, your orb count should be high enough to get you into Cloud Temples. If you want any luck making progress here, bring in Agent 9 to shoot down the Warlocks and keep going about your way. Repeat this until you get to the end for your next orb. It's also here we realize there's no possible way to strike any of the bells. And if you want to take on Agent 0, there's no stopping you whatsoever, so that's another orb for your collection. Then we check out Robotica Farms, the only other level everyone can access without worrying about orbs. Reaching the end will see you either high jump jumping as Sheila, flying to the finish with Sergeant Byrd, or using one of the two to keep Agent 9 and Bentley going. The only other orb you can obtain here is taking down the flies with Agent 9. We can't do anything to take down the pumpkins here, so we're just gonna have to leave it at that. Lastly, there's Canyon Speedway. Not much to report, but just collect all the rings here and add an additional set of gems for Sergeant Byrd. And here is where we meet a dead end. Despite my efforts to see every possible orb for these characters, their total amount is not enough to get to Metropolis, never mind actually reaching Ripto. With the progress we were able to make, we see Sheila at 53% complete with 18 orbs, Sergeant Byrd with 52% and 20 orbs, Bentley at 41% and only 6 orbs, man that's sad, and Agent 9 at 42% and 11 orbs. If we want to get these characters to Ripto's arena, at the very least, there is a fun little trick we can do to get these guys past the door, but we'll save that for the very end. For now, let's put the character swapper mod into full swing and see just how much we can bump up the Spyro 2 experience. Starting from Glimmer, these characters are going to be swapping in and out at full force, gathering as many orbs and gems as they can. Off the bat, while they won't be able to collect any orbs here, they can still gather all the gems without a hassle. Going into Summer Forest, we can start putting the water removal mod to good use. Here, Sheila and Bentley can bash the underwater vases across the board. These characters together can also collect all 4 orbs and fully 100% this level, which is always nice to see, though we shouldn't expect this to be the case for every level. Stages like Colossus and Isle Springs contain these metallic chests which cannot be opened whatsoever. At first I thought Bentley would have a clear advantage here, but alas. And depending on the level, these characters will be making a decent amount of progress as far as orbs go. If there are missions these characters can collect orbs for, by all means, go for it. Taking the water removal mod into Aquaria Towers is where things start to get interesting. If you fly all the way to the top with Sergeant Byrd and talk to Hunter, you will, get this, actually play the seahorse chase. Your character is invisible throughout the whole thing, but it's shocking I can actually do this at all. If you're fast enough, you can add 2 additional orbs to the collection, as well as rescue all of King Flippy's missing kids. Don't expect to come out of this with all the gems in hand because, yeah. Once you take care of Ocean Speedway and blast down Crush in his dungeon, we take these characters to Autumn Plains. Your orb count should be consistent at this rate, having enough to unlock the door going into the castle. From here, it's business as usual. As far as completing levels is concerned, you can gather all the gems in Crystal Glacier, complete Breeze Harbor 100%, and collect all the gems in Magma Cone. If you've been keeping note of what orbs you can and cannot go after, you should still have a decent amount to get you by. Check out the next 2 speedways, take down Gulp with Sergeant Byrd, then it's on the Winter Tundra. By this point, these characters should have about 20 orbs going into this homeworld, so we're gonna keep things going just to see what we can tackle. Off the bat, I can confirm it's possible to 100% Winter Tundra, though getting into Ripto's arena is still to come. Mystic Marsh will see you with 400 gems collected and a handful of orbs, minus the Professor's Pencil. While Cloud Temples and Robotica Farms will see these characters slacking behind for reasons like metallic chests, mystery jars, or certain orbs they just can't get. Thankfully, at this rate, we've got about 29 orbs in hand, which is more than enough to get us into Metropolis at last. And actually going into this level, we're met with our first issue. These platforms require you to head bash, and unfortunately, Sheila's Stomp attack won't be able to help us this time around. Fortunately, we can disregard this as we can fly out of bounds in order to get these guys where we need them to be. If you're concerned about the Ox, then sorry, we can't do anything to take this beast down. We can make our way to the end and collect our orb from the Inventor Droid, but unfortunately, that's it. We can't do anything about the sheep UFO, so that's another 2 orbs we're missing out on. So at 30 out of 40 orbs we need to get to Ripto, we're still 10 orbs short. However, there's still the matter of actually getting inside, and it's really just as simple as flying over the castle barrier with Sergeant Byrd. Position yourself just right and squeeze your way in through the ceiling. Here you can get the additional gems inside the hall and make your way into Ripto. So we've come all this way gathering as many gems and orbs as we can carry, and now it's only the matter of actually dealing with Ripto himself. Just how well do these characters hold up? Well, I've got bad news for you. Despite being able to get past Crush and miraculously take down Gulp by pure chance, none of these characters can even get the fight started with Ripto. Agent 9 can stun him in place, but it's just as effective as a standard flame attack. Bentley can reflect his Scepter Blasts, but that's really it. Even when I started switching mods as a last-ditch effort, not even the Omniswapper was doing me any favors. Not with the plane, not with any of the weapons they set up, not even Sparks himself can get the job done. I tried, I really did. But despite all the possibilities, we can't even defeat Ripto with any of these characters. Unfortunately, we're just gonna have to leave these characters here at 65% complete with 30 orbs and 8,200 gems in hand. So to summarize, can you beat Spyro 2 Ripto's Rage with any of these characters? To put it bluntly, no. We can't even beat the bare minimum of simply defeating Ripto. Honestly, this is a disheartening contrast from taking these characters through Spyro 1. Even though we can't 100% the first game, my experience was more fun there than it was this time around, if not for the number of possibilities Spyro 1 offered. I was eagerly curious at the start, but with the amount of limitations only getting bigger by the end, that honestly upset me to see that there is no beating Ripto under these circumstances. I'm sure if I could talk to any of the modders who helped me out with the water removal, there would be a different outcome. But alas. Much thanks again for helping me out, and I look forward to reporting more roadblocks like this your way when I can. All that said, this was still an interesting experience taking these characters throughout Spyro 2. As disappointed as I am, we can't really win them all at the end of the day, so I'll take what I can get. With any luck, I can only hope the next game fares much better in this regard. Until then, thank you all so much for watching. This is Miss Dan signing out, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care, everybody.